Welcome to the All About You podcast. Today my guest is Martin and he's an osteopath. Martin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Happy to be here.
I have to say I do love a health related podcast. The information the guests will bring, if that helps one person, we've all done our job. So I really appreciate you coming to do a podcast.
Likewise.
Martin, I think the first thing is, can you explain what an osteopath does? Because I think there's a lot of confusion between physiotherapy and osteopath, plus lots of other alternative therapies. So let's just go underneath the bonnet, explaining a little bit about being an osteopath and how you came to be an osteopath. As a 7-year-old child, is that what you decided was going to be your future?
No, it wasn't quite like that, but it's something that I kind of grew into after a bit of a different career in the same field though, but I'll get back to that in a bit. So what does an osteopath do? Osteopathy is a manual medicine, so it's like physical therapy or chiropractic, but the difference is that osteopathy basically treats the whole body and everything in and on it. And for example, a physical therapist will only treat the movement system, right? So the muscles and the bones and the joints, but there's a lot of stuff attached to that movement system, right? So our skeleton is basically like an umbrella, and it doesn't only have muscles attached to it to cause it to move, but also all kinds of organs and fascial tissue and stuff like that. So that's basically what an osteopath also takes into account. We look at the human body from an embryological perspective. So how does the human body develop from two cells coming together basically? And all the tissues that stem from that embryological development explains how certain organs and tissues function. So for example, you would come to an osteopath and you have pain in your shoulder, and an osteopath will obviously test the shoulder, but he will test the whole of the body because chances are the problem isn't in your shoulder. So we can treat your shoulder, but we basically need to find where the problem is. So for example, if you come into your kitchen every morning and you find that the floor is wet, and you can mop it up every day, for example, or you can try to find where the leak is. And this is kind of what an osteopath does. So he tries to find where the leak is, fix the leak, and then hopefully get rid of the complaint that the client has, basically.
I mean, that is really a great explanation of how it works, isn't it? You've got a problem with your shoulder, but let's look at the cause of that. And it could be something, I guess, totally unrelated. I think a lot of people go to osteopath with like sports-related injury.
For example, but we see all kinds of clients. I also treat a lot of babies, for example. But it can be anything from concentration problems to, how do you call that?
Digestive,
but the irritable bowel, IBS, pain-related issues, injuries, anything really. What I like about osteopathy is that it tries to be very humble. So an osteopath doesn't fix you, but it gives the body the nudge that it needs to fix itself, right? So its tissue contains a self-healing capacity. So if you get a cut, the body heals itself, right? And normally, if everything functions properly in the body, or this self-regulating property can function to its best capacity, basically. But sometimes it can't. And what we try to do is help the body regulate itself in an optimal fashion so that it can heal itself. If you would come to me for a treatment, for example, I would always say that in the end you are going to do the most work because I give you a little nudge in the right direction. So I mobilize some tissues that we find don't move properly, and then you will go home and then you will do most of the work yourself.
This is so interesting what you're saying, because absolutely the body is really, really good at repairing and renewing itself. Often we don't give the body the time and the space to do that. And I always use the example of a cold. I always say a cold is 3 days, a beginning, a middle and an end. If we can allow ourselves those 3 days to rest, drink the fluid, and I always say, watch the rubbish TV, read the book, chill out, rest. Your body is given that time and space to repair itself. But unfortunately, we're not very good like that. We'd rather pop the pill, put the solution in the water, chug that back because we're running out the door to work and all the rest of it. We're not very good at giving our bodies the time and space to repair.
No, I totally agree on that. It's a shame, really, but it's kind of the fashion nowadays, right? I think it's what the culture or it demands of us as working people, and we all want to get the quick fix, and that's also that's a little bit concerning if you look at the younger generation, because they see all these beautiful people on the social media, and they all promote these quick fixes, but we all know there are no quick fixes. If you want to change, especially health-wise, you need to put in the work. You're not going to get it for free, but it's not so difficult. You need to change a few basic things. So you need to change what you put into your body. Like, you don't put diesel into a gasoline car because it won't work, right? So it will mess up the engine, and that's the same thing with our human bodies. So most of the stuff we put into our bodies is not really made for human consumption, right? A lot of stress-related issues, like we have to work, we have all these deadlines, and that will mess up the autonomic balance. We can talk a little bit about that later as well, when we talk about functional breathing, for example. And we move way too little. So we are mainly sedentary. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the core points of osteopathy as well. Like, everything has to move. If everything can move properly, every tissue, every organ, then it can function properly. But that obviously translates to the whole of the body. So if you sit behind a desk all day, chances are the fluidity of certain fluids in your body isn't optimal, the connective tissue isn't optimal, etc., etc. So being sedentary, is not optimal for your health.
I think the planet is working against us even more now, because if we look at the normal lifestyle, somebody may be sitting behind a desk 8 hours a day. We then come home and we'll sit and watch 3 episodes of Netflix. We are sitting so much, and they are saying now, never mind alcohol and smoking, sitting is now a big killer, because we are getting fatter, we're getting lazier, we're not moving our body, and we're spending so much time with things like Netflix and on our phones, and our bodies were meant to move, to keep everything ticking over, and it's basically, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. I mean, that's true though, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Sitting and not moving is definitely a major health problem. But the things you mentioned, alcohol and smoking, for example, they're obviously not too good for you either. Sugar is one of the main problems as well. There's way too much sugar in a lot of the products that we eat, so not a good thing because it messes up our metabolism basically. Yeah, and sitting down, most of the people, they think they move enough when they walk to their car and then move to their work and they walk to the coffee machine or the copier. Most people don't do that nowadays anymore, but I guess the way workplaces are sort of arranged nowadays, it's even more easy to stay seated basically.
And I think working from home has had a huge impact, because in theory you are just walking around your house, using the bathroom, using the kitchen, sitting at your desk. You're not even doing that commute. For a lot of people that has gone as well. Martin, can I ask you, is there this would be the top 1, 2, 3 issues people will come to see an osteopath for?
It's very varied. So most people will definitely come with some sort of complaint of like pain-related issue, right? So lower back problems, for example, or head and neck problems, these kind of things, headaches. And then obviously there is the intestine-related, so the IBS, for example, the irritable bowel syndrome. That's a big one. But it's just so varied. I mean, even with babies, I get babies in the clinic that have problems feeding, for example, because there is some tension on their jaw or something in their abdomen is is pulling basically, and people can't see this, but I'm now pulling on my t-shirt basically to show what an influence tissues in the abdomen can have on like strain in the neck and the head, for example, which causes the jaw to not open properly, for example. So there's lots and lots of issues that people come to an osteopath with.
It's really interesting you've talked about people come and visit you with digestive problems and IBS. I think we are seeing a huge increase in bowel, stomach, digestion issues. Now, my theory is we are not moving as much. So to keep everything flowing, I'm not going to go into great detail, but basically everything that goes in should come out on a regular basis without a lot of problems. If we are not moving, that's going to slow down the traction of the food going in and out of the body. And I think, as you say, and you've touched on the amount of processed food we're eating, it doesn't need much work from the body to process high sugar, high fat, high salt. If you're eating your fruits and vegetables with the skin, lots of fibre, that's basically going to clean all your tubes and pipes as it travels through the system. So it's interesting that people are coming to you as an osteopath because digestive problems and IBS is not the first thing I thought people would visit an osteopath for. So that has blown my mind already.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of research being done on that right now. So apart from being an osteopath, I'm also head of the research department in our school. And we've started doing research to a couple of syndromes that are prevalent quite often. So we have the IBS, for example, diabetes too, headaches, these kind of things. And one of them is the IBS. And it turns out that osteopathy really can have a big impact on it, because what often is a problem, well, it's complicated. It's multifactorial, which is with all syndromes, obviously. So there's no clear-cut answer to this. But what an osteopath can do is mobilize the tissues that are responsible for the digestion, right? Mouth, throat, esophagus, stomach, and then you've got the duodenum, intestinum, colon, and these all have different functions. And attached to this part of the intestines are like the duodenum. You've got the gallbladder from the liver, basically. You've got the pancreas, which all are very important because they produce all these digestive enzymes and etc. etc. And this all needs to move because everything we put into our mouth, it has to move through the tractus, basically. And if there is a blockage somewhere, like basically intestines, colon are muscles with an absorption function, right? To be really blunt about that, basically. But if it can function properly and if it can move properly, so it has the biomechanical freedom to do its movement, which is also dependent on functioning of a nervous system, the enteric nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. So that's a very, very, very complicated. And then we also have the influence of the microbiome, and we talked about this. This
is everywhere at the moment,
yes.
Isn't it? Yeah, they call it the third brain.
Yeah, actually, I wrote my thesis on this, and I call it the first brain. I'm interested. What would be the other two brains?
I'm trying to rack my brains. I mean, are they saying like the heart? No, I think they were saying intuition.
Okay.
Because we often talk about we will feel things in our stomach.
Yeah, you've got a gut feeling. Right?
Gut feeling, exactly.
Yes.
So I think that was the second brain, and the microbiome, it's the third.
Well, if you look at the communication between our brain in our skull, basically, and the brain or the brain that we have in our gut, the information flow is actually, it's interesting, the numbers, because it's about 20% top down, and about 80% of the information will go from the body into the brain. So the brain is basically a very elaborate computer which kind of, it combines all the information, that it processes all the information. Now, we as humans, we have a large cortex, so obviously our cognition is a very strong presence in our being, basically. So we can overrule certain things through our cognition. However, when we look at the top-down or the bottom-up information from our, for example, part of it through the microbiome, through the vagus nerve towards the, I'm going to say this, people are going to shoot me for this, but the reptile brain, we cannot actually say that anymore, but it's the basically one of the older parts of our brain where we have things about behavior and emotions and all these kind of things. Basically, there is a lot of information going from the gut. If you have a microbiome that is not optimized in functioning, basically, it will not be strange that you can maybe have some, well, you're not functioning properly, you're not feeling well, these kind of things. So it's very interesting how these two are linked together.
Just to backtrack a bit, when you're talking about a patient you're seeing who maybe has digestive problems, obviously you've got all those pipes and tubes, but you would manipulate them just using your hands?
Yes.
So you would sort of feel around, is there any, do they feel any pain if you put a bit of pressure? And slowly as you work your way through, you can go, okay, I can feel something there. The client can feel something there. Okay, that's the bit we need to work on.
Yeah.
Purely by using your hands.
Yes. So sometimes it's easy because when people have had surgeries, for example, there will be scar tissue, and obviously the connective tissue also in deeper areas will be affected. So that's stuff that you can find easily because there's normally reduction of mobility of the tissues. I will clarify a little bit because we don't really focus on pain so much. So if the client will say, I have pain there and there, we tend not to be directed by that, because what we are interested is mobility. So we always try to find places of less mobility in the human body. Because pain, you can feel pain somewhere, but it can originate from somewhere else, and that's called referred pain, right? So that's quite common. So we can treat some area where the patient is feeling pain, but we might not be able to fix the problem, if you see what I mean. So we always try to work on areas that have reduced mobility, therefore enhancing the functioning of the tissue, etc., etc.
I mean, I've got a question for you. If you have a pain, let's say, in your right arm, it's because something's going on in your left arm. Does that make sense? I've heard this thing about sort of mirroring.
It could be a possibility, but again, there's no straight answer. There are no recipes in the human body.
Yeah.
Right? So 10 people will come into an osteopath's clinic with shoulder pain, and they will have 10 different treatments because the problem is in 10 different areas, because it's very individual and every person has their own story and background and medical history, etc., 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 which you all have to take into account, and that's what you're going to use to try to find the problem that is causing the pain.
So going back to our patient who's come to see you with digestive problems, you're going to basically feel the organs to see if you can find out what's going on there. And I guess that could be you find an area that feels quite hot, or you can feel there's a blockage, or when you put pressure they go, oh yeah, I can feel that. So through manipulation, just using your hands, you can release some of that pressure, some of that blockage.
Yeah, so it's like when you go to a massage therapist and you have a tight muscle somewhere and they will massage it and it will relax. And it's basically the same with organs, with tissue inside the abdomen, for example. The amazing thing about our body is that it will respond to what you do, but you have to treat it with respect. So if I continue the analogy for a sore muscle, sometimes a massage therapist will go with their elbows and with their thumbs, and it'd be quite direct, Obviously, I wouldn't be able to do that in your abdomen, because then, you would never come back and you'll be in a lot of pain, obviously. So sounds a little bit strange, but there's a little bit of communication going on between your hands and what the tissue tells you. So you test all these different mobilities of this tissue, and you try to see, okay, this this will work, this won't work, the body gives me a little bit of resistance. So it's very subtle. But then the techniques can be very direct sometimes as well. To be able to end up in the right spot where you need to do your manipulations, that will be that takes a little bit of time to practice. But that's why the training to become an osteopath is so long as well.
That is fantastic, Maarten. You are so coming back. You are so coming back.
Okay, that's settled then.
Yeah, definitely. Maarten, thank you so much. I mean, I feel very excited. I have a real life professor sitting here, and the way you explain things is just fantastic.
Thank you so much.
You're definitely going to come back. Maarten, thank you. This has been absolutely brilliant.
I thought so too. Very good.
Well, I do hope you enjoyed that conversation, and thank you for listening. I absolutely loved it, and yes, I will get Maarten back. Please subscribe for future episodes on whatever platform you are listening to, and it is free. Don't forget to share this podcast. And if you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com, and let's get your story told.